Hello, and welcome to Healthcare IT Today, where we explore the latest healthcare technology trends and discover valuable insights in health IT. I'm Colin Hung, and today we're going to talk about price transparency and maybe a little bit about price certainty. Sitting down with me today is Florian Otto, CEO and co founder of Cedar. Florian, welcome to the program.
Thanks a lot for having me, Colin.
So, Florian, you and I have never actually spoken, so this is fantastic that we're meeting here. Can you maybe tell me and the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes, very happy to. So, as you can probably hear from my accent, I'm from Germany originally. Studied medicine and dentistry, was a maxillofacial surgeon, and then did my PhD, so pretty academic career. And then after graduation, then joined McKinsey and Company and worked more in healthcare consulting. So a lot of projects, providers, payers, government healthcare. Lived 5 years in Brazil, where I started a company that Groupon bought, was then CEO of Groupon Brazil. And then back in 2016, started Cedar, based in New York.
And what does Cedar do? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. So we started Cedar so to enable us all to easily and affordably pursue the care that we need. And what we have basically seeing that a lot of healthcare systems provide an extremely good medical experience and really helping the patients very good on the clinical side. But then the administrative experience, so which is also very, very important, actually lags behind a lot when you compare it to any other industry. And we basically thought the patients deserve better.
So you're helping with the administrative experience, not necessarily the clinical experience. You're leaving that to the hospitals who you say are doing it perfectly fine.
Yes, 100%. We don't believe that we're a clinical company, and we believe that the hospitals are absolutely amazing in that.
So one of the areas that you help hospitals in, of course, is in the sort of financial experience or the price transparency. Before we get into how you help, let me ask you this question. What is the difference between price transparency and price certainty? And which is the right goal we should be striving for?
It's a great question, and I love you asking that. So we strongly believe that patients really should know, I mean, before the visit on what they are paying, right?
Mhm.
And to be clear, this is not very innovative. Any other industry has done that as well, right? So when you go in Uber tells you before the ride right now exactly what it cost. So price transparency, of course, is the step that is needed for patients really, to feel comfortable and know exactly what about their responsibility. And if they have that, this price transparency, that of course is a certainty for them, so that they can pursue the care without needing to worry about this financial experience. And we believe that there's a big difference between, just thinking about something or having the guarantee. I mean, you might remember when Uber just charged you for the minute and for the mile, you
Mm.
always had anxiety on what the trip cost. And then they switched towards an upfront and everybody loved it. Or you might remember the cell phone when they charged by minute and per text. You always were worried about the bill. And right now with the flat rate, you know what it is. Your anxiety goes down. And that is the most important piece.
Right. I still might not be happy with the total number, but at least I'm not living with the, is it going to be double what I expect it to be? You remove that variability. That's so interesting. That's so interesting. So I gotta ask, like, why is price transparency so hard in healthcare? I'm like, why have we not achieved it already?
Yeah, I know. It's a thing we probably talked already for 10 years ago or so, and we very likely will also talk in 10 years. Still, it's not 100% solved. So it has a few different elements. I think the first element is just the payment models. So
Mhm.
very often when you go right now to a healthcare provider, it's not very clear on what will be done with you. So as an example, right now, you, Colin, go and have your stomach hurts. You don't really know what it is. Is it just, I don't know, you ate something wrong, or is it maybe really something serious that needs exploration? You don't know that before, so you cannot really say if there is right now a different code for it and different reimbursement. So you just don't know about these complex procedures. However, that should not be an argument on that it's not possible, because there are probably something like 70% of the procedures where this is possible, because a very distinct function there. The second problem is, of course, the complexity with the payer. So the payer usually pays a part of it and
Right.
then gives the responsibility to the hospital or to the provider to charge the patient for the remainder.
Hmm.
And why is that so difficult is because every payer has a different negotiated rate with their provider. And also you don't know where is the patient on the out-of-pocket accumulator status. It might be that the patient hit already the out-of-pocket maximum or not. So those are very important drivers on really what will be done there.
So in your opinion, what's the linchpin? Is there any one thing that if we were to solve that, then it makes price transparency a lot easier for healthcare providers and for patients?
So I think there are a lot of things that can happen to really make it easier. And I think the worst thing is to just say, hey, it's complicated, it's not possible. This is absolutely not what we believe. And also, you might not get it. And you heard me probably saying, I don't believe we will get to 100% certainty for every single procedure. That is also totally fine because remember right now, compared to the gastronomy, right? You go to the restaurant right now, you have price certainty on a single meal, but you don't have certainty on what the entire visit will cost because you don't really know what you'll be eating, what you'll be drinking, and so on. But it's very clear to you that you don't need to pay separate for, I don't know, the chef for the cleaning, you don't need to pay for rent and so on, but it's one price for the certainties. So you know exactly what you pay for and you can make the decision. So that is the important piece. And I strongly believe healthcare can get to that at least because we know exactly. So if we know what will be done in terms of codes, you know which MRI will be done, which surgery will be done, and so on. You can 100% get to this is a price guarantee for this certain procedure.
Mhm.
If the procedure changes afterwards, I come back with a new estimate for that change, right? I think that is a very fair thing to say because when you go to a restaurant and you order right now the steak and then you decide to do the dessert, the prices increases. That is totally
Right.
fine, but you know before on what it cost. So that's where we need to get to. So for certain procedures, we strongly believe in bundled pricing makes sense so that you don't pay, let's say, for a surgery, for example, you pay by the minute of the anesthesiologist. It can make sense to just bundle that in and say statistically, it is 2 hour surgery, 120 minutes of anesthesiologist. This would be the bundled price for it. Then the professional service and so on.
Gotcha. And if something happens and they need more time, at least you would have known as a patient what the per minute rate or the per half hour rates or whatever it was. So, okay, at least I know it's going to be at least 2 hours. But if there's more, it's only because something happened during the surgery, something got more complex. And at which point you're probably happy to pay for that anesthesiologist to still be there.
Absolutely. You're totally right.
So, Florian, let me ask you this question. You recently had a study that came out, your 2021 Healthcare Consumer Experience Study. And one of the statistics in that study really jumped out at me. And this was 93% of respondents said that the billing and payment experience is an important factor for them when deciding where to get care. Why do you think that factor became so important so quickly? Because this is only fairly recent years where financial experience and payment experience has jumped it up in terms of the patient awareness.
Yeah, it's a great question. We got also a little bit surprised by it in the beginning, but then when you dig maybe one level deeper, I think you can understand it. I think there are two main drivers. And your question is basically why didn't it matter so much 10 years ago? It's a
Mm-hmm.
very fair point, and it was the case. Two reasons for that. The first reason is out of pocket, the share of out of pocket was much smaller. So if you need to pay, just call it $20, you don't care too much. If you pay $200, you care very much. So the rise in the patient payment space is definitely one very, very big factor.
Right.
The second is that the consumer experience is increasing and improving everywhere but in healthcare. So we had the Uber example. Uber knows where you are going before you open the app. You have cost certainty right now on your video streaming on Netflix. At Amazon, you know exactly how things are cost. It's very convenient. And Amazon does a very nice way of engaging you to check out your shopping cart. So the discrepancy between what the consumer is facing everywhere else in healthcare versus in healthcare is increasing. And all of that drives the consumer to be really fed up with it. And I strongly believe that this is good because the more right now the consumer, of course, is complaining and literally voting with their feet, they are also driving better adoption of those good technologies that make them a better consumer experience.
So in other words, Florian, what you're saying is that Amazon and Netflix have spoiled us, and now we've gotten used to a higher level of consumer experience, and now we want that in healthcare.
100%. I think there's this saying that your best experience anywhere becomes your expectation everywhere.
Oh, I like that.
And that is exactly this point that you mentioned, right? So you have a high bar, and the satisfaction is reality minus expectations, right?
No, I absolutely hear what you're saying, and I think maybe a few years ago you didn't have a lot of choice. You couldn't decide with your feet. You couldn't walk, right? Because where else were you going to go? But I now think that enough smart organizations have adopted some of these consumer-like experiences that now you do have a choice of which imaging clinic you want to go to, which laboratory you want to go to, and other parts of healthcare. So now it is possible to make a choice as a patient to say, I know I'm going to get a better experience over here, so I'm going to go there.
Yeah, and this will, of course, I think, improve the quality of care and also the experience for the consumers. And as we I think discussed in the beginning, we strongly believe that a good medical experience is table stake. And most of the hospitals really have good clinical experience. So on top of that, you need to have also the good administrative experience.
So was there a finding in your study that surprised you?
So there were a lot. Maybe one number to really point out that I think was really surprising is that 3/4, like exactly, I think 79% of the patients said that they are willing to pay their out-of-pocket cost prior to their visit or at the time of the visit if they are given a guaranteed price.
Mm.
And that is one thing that is actually very motivational to me. Why is that? That means the consumers, they want to pay for their visit. And that was always what we believed at Cedar. People want to pay. You pay for your restaurant if the food and the service is good, right? You never debate whether you want to pay for Amazon or not. Of course, do you pay for it when you do a trip on or book a trip on Expedia. And we strongly believe it's the same in healthcare as well. But they want the guarantee and they want the certainty before the visit. And 78%, that is quite a bit.
Yeah, that is quite a lot actually, and because there is I guess a myth that if patients knew how much it was, maybe they would not want to pay, maybe they would forego the care, or but your survey is basically saying that's not the case. 78% are saying no. I do want to pay. I just want to know. I want that guarantee up front.
Yeah.
So how does Cedar help with this? Maybe can you dive back into how do you help with the whole price transparency and price certainty part for a provider?
Yes, absolutely. I'm happy to talk about that, and that's literally in the core of what we are doing, because we want to have that the patient has the same level of experience that they are facing in other consumer companies, also in healthcare. So first of all, we started with the post-visit billing experience because we saw this was the most broken. So when you went on Yelp or Google reviews, the number one problem was post-visit billing experience. So we dove right in and did this head on. So how did we do this? We literally took some of the tools that the other companies use as well, which is a mobile first interaction. Everything needs to be immediate. Everything needs to be personalized. And of course, everything needs to be convenient and transparent. And those were kind of the pillars when we developed the technology of doing it. And yes, we strongly believe in personalization of the billing. A $500 bill can mean something for one person and very different for another person. We strongly believe that a good design science really helps to make it simple for consumers to pay the bill. So average time to pay, or median time to pay, for a bill on Cedar is 100 seconds. That's extremely fast, right? When you compare it to normal. So we strongly believe in reducing the friction there. And of course, we want to have everything mobile first. We saw this works after the visit. So then we went to the pre-visit, and you probably have seen our launch of Cedar Pre. And that was exactly what we did in the pre-visit then as well. So we basically wanted to virtually take the patient by their hand from the beginning after booking the appointment, helping them with the administrative check-in experience, with the financial transparency piece, telling them, for example, that they're in network, that they're not in network, and communicating with them, capturing their insurance card, and really guiding them through this entire journey so that the consumer can only focus on what is important to them, which is to get healthy again.
Florian, thank you so much for that. I really enjoyed listening to how you're helping your provider clients. What have you been hearing from your clients in terms of feedback on the experience that you're now able to provide to their patients?
Yeah, so to be clear, we of course have clients, but the clients and us share exactly the same objective, which is making the consumers happy. So they measure us by how happy the patients are.
Mm-hmm.
And we have right now a satisfaction of 89%. So it means 89% of the consumers give us 4 or 5 stars out of 5. That is extremely high for a part of the entire healthcare journey that I think had a net promoter score lower than visiting the DMV before. So it was the most a sore point. And as we know, that trust is consistency over time. If you have a great experience otherwise, and you didn't have a consistent billing experience, that erodes trust. And healthcare systems really, really love that point, that we basically elevate this source point. Then, of course, complaints go down because
Mm-hmm.
patients right now think this is fair, this is transparent. They are being dealt that they feel they're in the center of everything. So they really like this. And then, of course, the happy patients, and that's the interesting piece, also results in an increase in payments. So we are increasing the payment rates dramatically by around 30% from the patients. So patients are happier, and happier patients usually pay. Back to the point, we know that most of the patients want to pay. So we did that. And of course, the hospitals and healthcare systems, they're very happy that we have an increased payment rates, especially right now where they are under margin pressure because the cost is increasing, salaries are increasing, and reimbursement rates are increasing at a slower rate. So every year they're needing to increase somehow the revenue, and Cedar is helping them with that.
So, Florian, there's been a topic that's been bubbling to the surface, and I think a lot of people are becoming more and more concerned about it, both providers and patients, and that is the concept of prior authorization. We're hearing that, of course, this is going to become mandatory, or it is mandatory, but it's causing a lot of concern in terms of workflow and delays and so forth. How does prior authorization factor into what you're doing?
Yes, you're totally right, Colin. Prior authorizations are a problem. Let's be very clear. They are a problem for the provider, for the payer, and for the patient. All 3 entities and all 3 stakeholders really hate them. So why did they get into place? Of course, because some procedures are very expensive and the payer wants to have somehow guardrails of the provider to perform them. Who is suffering from this back and forth between provider and payer? It's the patient. That's the biggest problem. So what is the fundamental problem and pain point, and how can Cedar help there? The first is this takes time. If you right now have a serious problem, you of course want to be diagnosed or treated immediately. This time really is against you, and you really don't like this. Secondly, very often you book already your visit for this treatment before the prior authorization is through, just to save time. So a lot of patients then show up for this appointment only to hear, sorry, your prior authorization is not granted yet. Either you pay right now $1 gazillion out of pocket, or you go home and come back. And these are both terrible options. So 2 things we can do, of course, and Cedar is working also on a product of automating the prior authorization process, so to have less humans involved in that. Mm-hmm. So to speed up the process, because there's no reason why should it take weeks to do this. And the second is, in case it takes longer than the visit, at least message to the patient, your prior authorization is not done yet. Please reschedule appointment to next week. That is the minimum we should do, and we owe to the patient. So the patient becomes, from being the ping pong ball between the 2 records, to be in the center of attention. And that's strongly where we believe the patient should be.
Florian, you've shared so much wonderful information with us today. Where can people go to find out more about Cedar?
Yes. So first of all, of course, we have a website, cedar.com. That's the easy. You can usually find us also on, we're providing a lot of interesting content there, a lot of case studies, because in the end, the most beautiful software doesn't really help you if there's not the impact. So we really want to ask you. Then there, of course, there are conferences where we usually are part of. So you mentioned right now HIMSS or Vive. Also at Beckers, we're also hosting a lot of webinars. So we'd love everybody to join there as well.
Florian, thank you so much for being on the program. And if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, we'd love for you to subscribe, rate, and give us a review on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you're watching and listening. Also, head on over to healthcareittoday.com to access free resources, industry news, and insightful articles. You can also connect with us on Twitter using the hashtag HITSM. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here.